There were no crashes, but lots of chaos here on Fast Friday at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. I'm Nathan Brown, your motorsports insider with the Indianapolis Star, here to break down a crazy, chaotic, but ultimately clean day of Indy 500 practice as we turned up the boost 100 horsepower, saw speeds well into the 234s, saw four lap averages in the 233s, setting up a really interesting weekend of qualifying here on Saturday and Sunday. To lead things off, here are our top speeds. Now, when I'm running through these are 4-lap average speeds. We're not as concerned today with top 1-lap speeds as we might have been over Wednesday and Thursday, because ultimately, just because you can turn one really fast lap doesn't necessarily mean that you have the most consistent car to run over 10 miles, and that's what it takes to qualify for the 500, the process that we'll see here on Saturday and Sunday. So these are your top 10 on the charts for 4-lap average speeds today. Starting off with Chip Ganassi Racing's Takuma Sato, who we've heard a lot of, who's been right up there all week in his first year with this new team. 233.413 miles an hour for his 4-lap average, close behind his Ganassi teammate Marcus Ericsson at 233.113. We go to Team Penske duo of Joseph Newgarden at 233.086, and Will Power, the 2022 IndyCar champ, number 4, at 233.070. The rest of your top 10 includes Rinus VeeKay, Colton Herta, Felix Rosenqvist, Kyle Kirkwood, Alexander Rossi, and Scott Dixon. We just finished up the qualifying draw here this evening, actually just before it started raining, which was a nice coincidence. It was great that the weather gods were nice to us today. We lost a day of testing last month. We lost a day of practice earlier this week, so it was nice to not lose any on-track time today. Important part of this qualifying weekend process. We will ultimately see how important. It really depends on what temperatures we'll see tomorrow and what type of range we'll see from 11 a.m. when cars initially go out on track to start their 4-lap qualifying runs, and around 2:30 or so when we would expect all of the cars to have finished their initial runs if they so choose to go out and make them. If you see hotter ambient temperatures, that means the track's hotter. That means guys don't have quite as much grip, and means that they ultimately aren't going to be running as fast. So it's important, if you can, although it is a completely random draw, to land those first couple spots. Maybe don't want to be number 1 because the track is completely green. We're going to get some rain here this evening, and so a lot of the rubber that the guys have been putting on the track over these last couple days will end up washing off. There are 2 30-minute practice sessions for one half of the field. One half goes from 8:30 to 9. One half goes 9 to 9:30. They have the option to do that. You oftentimes see a lot of drivers pretty happy with their car after this Fast Friday session. Don't really want to go and test things out. They're not going to learn a whole lot. There's not a whole lot of time to make adjustments, and there's of course the risk that you could push it over the edge and crash your car. So we will likely see a couple cars on track, but not too many. I would suspect. We just talked to Pato Award, Takuma Sato, and Kyle Kirkwood. All 3 of them said that they don't expect to be out here early Saturday morning. Of course, those were guys that performed really well. If you have a car near the end of the 4-lap averages, like your Ray Hall, Letterman, Lanigan Racing, perhaps Able Motorsports with R.C. Enerson, those might be some folks that you could see on the track tomorrow morning. Oftentimes, you'll see some really fast speeds. Last year, we saw Ed Carpenter turn in the 8th fastest Indy 500 practice single lap time speed ever. So I think Jimmy Johnson and Scott Dixon were turned in laps last year that were also in the top 15. So that's, I think, as early as cars will ever run this month. So typically cooler temperatures and faster speeds, particularly with the boost that they will also be running tomorrow and throughout qualifying weekend. So just to give you an idea of who will be hitting the track first tomorrow to make their initial qualifying runs, you will be seeing Ryan Hunter-Reay, Colton Herta, Will Power, Elio Castroneves and Marco Andretti, Kyle Kirkwood, Catherine Legg, Scott McLaughlin, Augustin Canapino, and Joseph Newgarden will be bringing up the rear. So those guys will be going out in all likelihood when it is as hot as it will be for anyone making their first runs. Those typically are pretty tough to start off the day through the first round of runs on top. It's possible with a really good car, like we have seen Joseph Newgarden have, for example, was in the top 4 of 4-lap averages today. Certainly possible for those folks to still make it into the Fast 12, and really that's all that matters tomorrow. Get in the top 12, live to fight another day, have still a shot at qualifying for pole on Sunday. But with as fast and as tight of a field as we've seen, I mean, you go through and think of all of the cars that we would typically think are really good. You've got 3 Penskes, you've got 4 Ganassi's, you've got 3 Air McLaren cars. You're already there at 10. You've got at least 3 good Andretti cars, so you're at 13. Ed Carpenter Racing's 3 cars have been solid, and you're at 16 there. So some of those cars in that group will not make the Fast 12. And if we have some surprises, Santino Ferrucci has been running fairly strong. David Malukas is typically running well on ovals. Some other good teams out there. We could see even fewer of those quote-unquote Big 4 teams living to have a shot to fight for pole on Sunday. Now, before we get there, we got a chance to catch up with Marco Andretti, who, of course, is back in an Indy car for the first time since last year's Indy 500. He qualified on pole in 2020, but it has been a bit of tough sledding for Marco really since that qualifying run. He gave up the lead of the 500 in 2020 on the first lap. I don't think he actually led a lap. And over these last couple of years, he's oftentimes referenced struggling with what we call slow car syndrome, where you can't really figure out what's going on. You go through, you change out some parts, you look through all the data, you plug up all of the holes and the seams on the car, and you just still can't get it running well. He's back up, was up fairly high for most of the day. I think he was in the top 10, ended up falling down to the 17th best 4-lap average today. I'm not sure how much running he was doing at the end of the day when we saw some mid-pack guys really rise up the chart. So he talked earlier with us just about those struggles that he underwent these last couple of years, and now feeling like he has a car again that either can challenge for pole or at least be around for that Fast 12 run here on Sunday.
Last year, the difference for me is car speed. I mean, I knew the last 2 years, I knew I wasn't even going to be able to play for victory. I mean, it's a demoralizing feeling. This year, I think if we execute, we should have a third row qualifying car, and the race balance can get the job done from there. I just want to be able to play, and I think this year we have the car to be able to be in there and hound these guys, and hopefully, even if there are better cars than us, just out-execute them and be there in the end. I think by the time all the cars just do one run, I mean, you almost are able to see, like, oh boy, like this, especially just a relative, you go out and run yourself. I mean, I've had it the last two years where coming up to the test, we had wind tunnel numbers that were demoralizing. And I went out in the first run in the test, and I go, yep, we're in trouble. And it's such a bummer because you put so much into this. And, with this year, we had decent wind tunnel numbers and backed up those decent, I don't think we have a pole car this year, but I think if we ring it out, hopefully, maybe third row. And, if you start in the top 10 here, you have a shot.
A rookie in the field, Stingray Robb, also spoke with us earlier this week, and his big focus coming into Indy 500 qualifying, where lack of mistakes are so important, is just being patient. Stingray's gone through a bit of a tough start to his IndyCar career, whether he's made mistakes and spun or whether he's had mechanical failures that have taken him out of races. It's been tough sledding for the Dale Coyne Racing rookie, and so he says coming into his first 4-lap run with 100 more horsepower of boost during Indy 500 qualifying weekend, he just wants to stay patient, take what the cars and the conditions give him, and see where he ends up.
We're here for a long time. there's a lot to be done, a lot to be learned, and so you kind of got to pace yourself in the car, be patient, work on the little things. As a driver, it's easy to kind of get ahead of yourself and just want to go fast all the time, and around this place you can't push it. You kind of got to let the car tell you what it needs to do, and you can't overdrive. Because you overdrive, you're going to end up in the wall. There's not much room for error. This is a step up from anything we've ever done. It would have been nice had we done the Freedom 100, but that last few years when they've canceled it, that was when I was coming up through the ranks. And so this is my first time getting to run around this place. And everything leading up to this point, maybe Texas Motor Speedway would be a similar experience, but even then it's a high-banked 2-lane oval. And so we're dealing with similar speeds, but the feeling around this place is completely different.
Some important news to address before we finish up today's edition of Pit Pass Live. Just in the closing minutes of today's Fast Friday practice, if you were watching the Peacock broadcast, you probably saw Jack Harvey's car going around the IMS oval with some smoke sputtering out the back of his car, pull down into the cool-down lane, head back to the pits. Trackside Online, great guys, Steve Wittich and company went and confirmed with Honda that Jack Harvey suffered a blown engine here at the end of practice today. So his Ray Hall Letterman Lanigan Racing number 30 Honda crew will undergo swift work this evening and pull an engine change. Hopefully that fixes Jack's woes, although we have seen through these last couple days especially, Ray Hall Letterman Lanigan for the most part has been struggling to find some speed. I think Jack finished maybe 10th on the timing charts on Wednesday and the first day of qualifying, but I believe we had 3 of the 4 Ray Hall Letterman Lanigan Racing cars in the bottom 5 today on 4-lap averages. That's not a place, especially with a 4-car team, that you want to be heading into qualifying. We only have 1 car that's not going to make the race, but you certainly don't want to have 3 of your cars in that battle to not be that unfortunate entry. Also, potentially one of the folks that could be competing just to try and make this race, Callum Eilot, the second-year full-time driver from Juncos Hollinger Racing, has battled trying to find speed and comfort in the car really ever since we had that what was supposed to be a 2-day open test here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway in April. Went through, I would say, a so-so early session on that first and only day of testing that we ended up getting, but the second run through after we'd had our rookies and veteran refreshers take care of their programs, I believe he only logged 10 laps, and he could only get it to just under 213 miles an hour. Was not comfortable going any faster than that. Team took the car back to the shop over these last couple weeks as after we've had our race at Barber and on the IMS road course, and several times considered changing out that chassis to the one that Agustin Canapino ran, his rookie teammate, in that test. Canapino has since moved to an Indy 500 specific chassis, so they had that chassis of Canapino's sitting around. Eilot, I believe this was his 500 specific car that they had set aside for him, and just had not been performing well, neither in that test. They struggled a bit through Wednesday's practice to find any sense of comfort. I think they were finally feeling like they were getting close to it at the end of practice. And then on Thursday, they turned a lap of 234 miles an hour in a draft with a little bit of tow. Not an eye-popping number, but I think something on Thursday at the start, I think that was maybe Callum's 4th lap of the day. I think they expected that to continue to progress, and it just never got there. They ran more than 70 laps on Thursday, could not find comfort. Callum, when we started today's Fast Friday session, went so far as to say he didn't really feel safe in that car. Certainly did not feel safe running the necessary speeds that it would take to qualify for the Indy 500. So at around 3 o'clock, they pulled his car back to the garage, and Ricardo Juncos made the decision to go ahead and swap out Callum's chassis to that other chassis that Augustine had used back in April. So they will be thrashing furiously overnight, trying to get everything swapped out. They had swapped just about everything in Callum's original number 77 Honda entry, trying to figure out what was wrong. They couldn't find it, couldn't find where that speed was missing from, and why it was such a hard car to handle and find balance with. They are allowed to at least, I would say, maybe this is not necessarily the rules. I'm not 100% certain what this says, but Callum, when he was talking to us as that change was starting to take place, said he'd pay whatever fine was necessary to allow his team to work overnight. IndyCar has said that is not necessary. They will work with them. They will give them the time that they need, that they feel like they can safely keep their crew workers and mechanics awake to get this change taken care of. Now, it's not guaranteed that it will be done overnight. Ricardo and Callum did say there's certainly a chance to make sure that they get this car right. It may not be ready either for his first qualifying run tomorrow or potentially at all. The track closes. No one can take off from pit lane after 5:50 p.m. tomorrow, so you would think, hopefully, with 24 hours to swap out that chassis, they'll have enough time to be able to do that, working around the clock with some caffeine and some snacks that Callum said he is happy to go and pick up for the team late into tonight. But we will see if they make it on track. I think it was last year, Stefan Wilson, who was running with Cusick Motorsports, didn't end up making his qualifying run, but because there were only 33 cars, still ended up making the race. If Callum does not appear on track tomorrow, he will automatically be one of those 4 cars that will be running in the last chance qualifying session at 4 o'clock on Sunday afternoon. 4 cars fighting for 3 final spots in the 107th running of the Indianapolis 500 field. That's all we got. We got some great stories online. A story taking you a little bit more in depth on Callum and Juncos's unfortunate situation that they'll be battling with overnight. I encourage you to check that out. Some really great, eye-opening, honest quotes from both Callum and team owner Ricardo Juncos himself. We also have some news stories. One about Chip Ganassi's initial responses to some of the things that Marcus Ericsson has been saying this week in relation to his contract being over at the end of the year, wanting to not be a pay driver anymore, not wanting the fact that he brings sponsorship be the thing that helps secure him a ride. He wants to have this ride in the number 10 Honda at CGR on merit alone, and as a guy who's finished 6th in the championship each of these last 2 years, I would say he's deserved that. Also has, of course, we know, won the 500 last year. Chip was not all too happy to be getting these questions, I will say, and I will leave it at that, and I will encourage you to go and read that story. We also have a story about the possibility of IndyCar IMS Penske Entertainment considering using pay-per-view for local central Indiana residents to try and be able to watch this race live. Answering that question, it was a question that I was getting posed by lots of folks after we heard that the blackout was back, both with over-the-air TV on NBC as well as Peacock. If you are one of those folks that wanted to know about that question, I encourage you to go look at it. It's a pretty definitive answer from Mark Miles. I will be working a lot more this evening, getting you guys some great stories both for qualifying and early into next week. IndyStar.com is the home for all of those. Has our Pit Pass live videos, great photo galleries you won't get anywhere else of all the action on track, off the track, here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Thanks for watching this edition of Pit Pass Live. Come back tomorrow, break all of day 1 of qualifying down for you here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. For the Indianapolis Star, I'm Nathan Brown.